The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Is it my story, your story, his story, her story, Jane's story, Joe's story? Is it just an allegory? Show's about to start and we still don't have a name for it. Bop, 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 bop. It's a long story.
Aging and cystic fibrosis are words you don't always hear in the same sentence, but on this podcast, you'll hear them all the time. With relevant discussions and unexpected explorations wherever this podcast might take us.
So many people with CF are living longer thanks to modulators and medical advances. We thought it was time to get into some real conversations with expert guests and people from all walks of CF about what living longer with CF means, the good and the not so good.
I'm Dr. Ahmet Uluer.
And I'm Lauren Harvey.
I'm a medicine and pediatric trained pulmonologist and director of an adult CF center at a Harvard-affiliated hospital right here in Boston.
And I've had CF all my life and was recently diagnosed with CF-related diabetes. I am committed to creating a supportive space for those with CF and their loved ones.
I will bring the medical expertise and provider perspective.
I bring the real-life CF experience.
And together we bring you It's a Lung Story, a monthly podcast about aging with cystic fibrosis, where we take a little time to tell a lung story.
It's a long story.
It's a lung story.
Yikes. That was good.
That was awful.
That was not awful. That was like Pacific time, 6 a.m. in the morning, long story. So that was perfect. I loved it. So welcome to another podcast. And once again, we are joined by my partner, Lauren, whose background looks nice and tidy, but we know her closet is a disaster. Right, Lauren?
It's true. It's very true. We just moved into this place, so I made sure my background was good. Everything else is terrible.
By the way, we've never seen Lauren's closet, but I just thought I would.
Oh,
I assume
yeah.
You don't
that.
want to.
Yeah, I figured that
No
was
one
the
wants
case.
to.
I want to see it even more now.
After
And-
this, I'll show you.
Awesome. All right, that's a deal. Andrea Becker, our producer, our muse. But believe me, when this recording ends, she whips us into shape when Lauren and I mess up. So just beware. After this, like all the gloves come off. Andrea.
It's scary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do whip. And so welcome Ahmet, who is helping to shape the future of CF care from the U.S. to Jordan to Kenya, but is still secretly hoping someone ask him to do his Scooby-Doo impression on the show.
Oh, shoot. All right. Well, first of all, the reason I think you're asking is because I used to convince my kids that I was the Scooby-Doo voiceover and that, that's what their dad did for a job for a while. But we don't know if it's going to work on this. I don't know why we're doing this.
Shaggy, parenting episode.
I think
I might have to do that again later, but just because it needs a little bit of practice. Okay, listen, what a month it has been, and since we've all been together, Andrea, Lauren, and I. But actually, for Lauren, it's been 2 months since we were together, and that is because our dear Lauren was absent for what reason? And it was part of our quiz question. But Lauren, what was going on the last couple months with you?
Yeah, so I went to Europe for the first time. We went to Paris, Rome, and Florence. And I also got engaged in Paris. So that was super exciting. I'm beyond happy about it. And now I'm starting a new job and trying to just get back into the swing of things. So just all good things happening, but it's a lot at once.
That's
Thank
amazing
you.
news. We said that you're out on assignment. So we think, hopefully you have some other reporting for us. But Andrea, do you have anything that matches that or you're not going to beat that?
I'm getting divorced. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, we all probably don't know I had spinal fusion surgery in April. So, I've been working on getting my endurance back and walking over a mile now. And considering
Wow.
before that, I could not stand up.
That's
So
amazing.
we're getting there.
Yeah. That is fantastic. I mean, that is a huge deal, from where you were to now walking a mile. That's pretty amazing. And actually just like it hit me that I did something for a mile also recently, and there's an area called the Berkshires here in Massachusetts. And so my wife's family was in town and they arranged for us to go ziplining on this ski mountain called Catamount. And it is the longest zip line in North America, a mile long from the top of the mountain. It was crazy. Like, definitely the anticipation was worse than the actual ride down. The ride down was amazing, but you go like 60 miles per hour. So that was actually pretty cool.
So fun. Do you have
It
to
was really
hike up
fun.
there or can you just take like an elevator?
No, you take the ski lift. So it's
Okay.
a ski mountain that you end up there. So anyway, so that was a little bit faster mile, Andrea, than your mile, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I want to do that. That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
I mentioned it so that you guys do. So
Okay.
anyway, let's get back to why we're here today. And by popular demand, we're fortunate to speak with 3 guests who are all parents who have also happened to be diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And we're looking forward to hearing from our first guest, Abby Halstead. She's our second guest joining us from overseas this summer and lives in the UK. Abby is a full-time mother of 3, part-time business owner, published author of a book called One Tiny Fault. She's a CF advocate and mother to one might describe as an enormous Springer Spaniel based on your message and bio, named Captain, and a cat named Hermione who answers to no one. She and her husband use terms like knackered instead of saying she is exhausted when describing having 3 kids in 18 months, and is the lead governor for Royal Papworth Hospital, where I'm sure she's a brilliant voice for her community. Welcome, Abby.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are absolutely delighted. And our next guest is Mike Shapiro, who is nearly a Puerto Rican beach baby, but fate and cystic fibrosis had other plans. Diagnosed at just 5 months old, Mike Shapiro's life stayed rooted in Boston, where we know him very well, where he became a lifelong patient of the legendary Dr. Harry Schwachman, and eventually a loving husband, full-time health insurance professional, and proud father of amazing twin daughters, now in their late 20s. And while he didn't always dream of being a dad, today he says the joy his daughters bring is worth every sleepless night and hospital workaround. Michael is a native of Medford, Massachusetts, the youngest of 3 brothers, and despite being an Ohio State alum, we're so grateful you're here to share your story. Hey, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And lastly, we welcome Morgan Barrett, joining us from rural Northeast Kansas, where she's a writer, photographer, chicken coop keeper, and CF advocate. Morgan is a mom to 4.5-year-old twins like Abby and partner to her husband. She's also a sister to 2 siblings who, like her, have cystic fibrosis. And Morgan's life blends the real and the reflective. On Instagram, her Substack, which I did visit and read, is incredible, chronically candid. She shares truly courageous and insightful stories, including parenting with CF, millennial nostalgia, mental health topics, and the unexpected corners of chronic illness. Her pregnancy was a surprise, parenthood a deep recalibration, and through it all, Morgan's honesty about fatigue, guilt, joy, and growth while trying to balance being present for others and still learning how to be present for herself really rings through. And whether she's tending a garden or unpacking with rest really means for someone with CF, Morgan brings rare mix of insight, wit, and grounded vulnerability. So thank you, Morgan. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. Wow, that was, I don't know if you guys knew what your introductions were going to be, but that was like, great. Can I have that?
Absolutely. Well, I took we're going to dive in now, but I really dove into your histories and tried to find, some social media for someone who is not very good at social media. So I'm glad you like that.
But you're getting better.
Yeah.
Getting better.
And I would say that, we're really it is just an incredible thing. And I'm glad that our podcast listeners suggested that we do this, because this is just going to be a great conversation, especially as people are growing older and having families. And each of you are bringing a perspective that we want to hear about. So one of the things that, is always hard is when people are going on vacation. Like we had a community member who just went overseas to the Middle East, and the kind of planning that takes place is really incredible. Now, when you're vacationing with kids and you have CF, and Abby, I believe this is something you just experienced. I wanted to start our first question with you and expectations of being a parent and what it takes to get ready to go on vacation with 3 kids.
Well, with 3 kids, it's probably the same amount of stuff as just with one child because they take the same amount of stuff. But for me, I have to pre-plan with my hospital and have IVs first. So for the children, that's quite difficult because to go on holiday and have the fun, they know that I have to go away for a bit in advance, and that's mentally quite challenging for them. And then because of my state of health, I don't leave the UK at the moment. It's not that I can't, but the travel insurance is just not worth it for me. And also, because I do get very unwell very, very quickly, I can't really consider being in a different country and managing the children and being in a foreign hospital. So we're very limited to the UK, and the UK holidays have become very, very expensive since COVID. So it's a big ask. And then you add in all of the hospital time, and I have to take my oxygen with me. Even though I'm not on oxygen, I do require oxygen when I become unwell. So I have to take that with me, because even though in comparison to you guys, you probably think the UK is tiny, we don't have that many CF centres. So we need to be prepared. So I went just to Cornwall last week, which is only 6 hours. But in the UK, that seems like a very long drive. We actually stopped in the middle on the way back because it's too far to do 6 hours in the UK. My goodness.
It's because you guys have too many roundabouts.
Probably. It is the roundabouts that are the issue. So it's just a lot of pre-planning and planning with school. And I tend to go outside of the actual holidays just so that we can work all of it around, because I don't want to go into hospital during the holidays and then go away as well. It's too much.
Can you not do home IVs? You have to go into admission?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be able to do home IVs, but I'm because I have gladioli, Burkholderia gladioli, there's a very, very limited number of antibiotics, and unfortunately, I'm intolerant to most of them. So in theory, I can do home IVs, but I have to go in for the first at least 3 days. But this last time I went in for what was supposed to be 2 nights, and I reacted too badly and had to have oxygen for a few days. And my eosinophils went up too much, my liver got unhappy. So I actually did the whole course in because there was no point in going home. But that's specific to my bug.
So always expecting the unexpected like that, and just nothing is as you plan. I was going to ask, Michael and Morgan. I mean, so Abby, as we're going to understand that you are not on a modulator, is that right? And so, do you remember, Michael, Morgan, how different was it before modulators and now after modulator going on vacation? Morgan, let's start with you.
Abby, I'm just like blown away. Sorry, I'm still like processing that. That's so much work. And with 3 kids, I can't imagine. So for me, it's quite different than it used to be. I won't go too deep into this, but Abby, it makes me think of something you said about going into a foreign hospital. Actually, when I was in the UK, I had to go to a clinic in London because I had gotten pleurisy on the plane on the way there. And I was like, I didn't know what was happening. I'd never had pleurisy before. And then I also had to go to a clinic when I was in Spain one time because I'd traveled all that way and forgotten my nebulizer machine, which was very stressful at the time because I was pretty sick. So, it could become really cumbersome and inconvenient and like interrupt your travel plans. So for me, mostly it was just the inconvenience of lugging a bunch of equipment. And then occasionally when there were bumps in the road, so to speak, having to figure out like how to, navigating a foreign healthcare system, which I must say they are simpler than ours in most cases, and cheaper. So now, I mean, really it's nothing at all. Like it's really, I take my pills with me and that's it. And, I really have nothing to say about it now because it's just so normal and simple.
So different. Mike, do you have any reflection on that?
Traveling is always a big mental pain in the ass for me. My wife is always trying to get down to what everybody else does. It's just, let's do carry-ons only. And that's usually a stopping point for me. I'm like, I have my carry-on as half drugs. So, and I'm on a modulator, but I still do a fair amount of airway clearance. I, adhere to everything. And so, the neb comes with me, everything comes with me. In the old days, before that, before the modulator, I do remember there was a time I was going to Italy, and I made the mistake in the airport of doing a neb. This is way before COVID. I would never take out a neb at this point at the airport because I would have a mask on. But I was just doing a neb, and I plugged it into the port for a phone, and I fried the neb before going to Venice. Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's not surprising that I did that because I tend to do stupid stuff. So in any case, I went to Venice, and then I didn't have the presence of mind to just go to the pharmacy to get another one. But I told my wife, I'm like, we're only gone like a week. This is what it used to be, because I'm before nebulizers. I remember when we came up with, sodium chloride solution and everything else. There were no nebulizers way back in the day. Unless I got sick and, way, way long ago, there's like Isopril and a few other things, but not on a continued basis. But it's a pain in the ass because you're packing for yourself. The good news is, as the male version of my two female compadres, my wife usually handles the kids, at least as far as their packing. But, I'm still the pack mule for carrying through the airport for everything. The one place where we always get stopped is security, because any kind of nebs that I'm bringing with the ice pack, they're always checking the ice pack. And then, PEG solution too. So I'll bring, Miralax, but I have the generic form, and just put the white powder in a container.
Yeah.
They always have to swipe that. But, TSA is always weird. One time I had my Subway. They opened up my Subway sub.
For the non-regional listeners, it's a sandwich.
Yeah. Like, you're wanting my sandwich? That seems a little bit cruel. We've made the decision to not go a few places. Like, we were thinking about Fiji, and then thinking about your worst case scenario, you get a flu on the plane, you need to get hospitalized, and there's really not adequate, no offense to the Fiji people, but I don't remember where we were going, but there was not a hospital unless you medevaced to like Australia. And I was like, I don't want to go to Australia. So, yeah.
But it is amazing, just all the thought that you guys have to go through. And I do appreciate throughout this podcast, I think Michael's going to bring a different perspective as a father, because I do think there are some differences. So as far as packing is one of them. So it's, anyway, it's going to be good to hear that. And, for those who don't have to go through this, you just don't understand. And our team, we will try to identify a hospital. We'll try to identify, how do we get things delivered to that location? So our team of social workers and nurse practitioners and our nurse coordinators will, assist, but nothing as trialing as, that you guys go through with travel. So I appreciate you sharing, all of you guys sharing your experiences with this. Andrea, you were going to say something?
How can you tell? No, I just want to say I can so relate, because having been almost kicked off a plane and also landed a plane, separate incidents, having to have my meds FedExed back when you could do that, to Europe. Lots of planning and checking the CS centers and not going too far from Rome, or you still have stuff that happens, and it almost like sometimes not worth the anxiety, but like there's still like that voice that says like, go do it, try. And I'm glad to see and hear that everybody is still going and doing it and trying it. Like, whether, Abby, for you at the moment it's right in the UK, but maybe not forever, you still have to like push forward.
Yeah, and thankfully there's really amazing places to go see in the UK. So that's really great. And I wanted to just say this, you must have been knackered. I just love the terms that you guys
He's going to try to throw that in every time that he gets.
It will be, yeah.
We were knackered, yes. Is that a rude word in America? Sorry.
It's not rude at
No,
all.
not.
It's just
It doesn't exist.
it's totally, yeah. We have no idea what that means.
I used to go abroad pre-kids. It's just the concept of being in a foreign hospital and trying to manage the children. I just can't comprehend how I would do that. So I haven't gone abroad since.
Well, I have one little travel story just because, everyone else
Yeah.
told one. So
Yeah,
why shouldn't
please.
I? I once got stopped for cashews at TSA, and they thought it was a bomb, and I was stuck there for 30 minutes. So, if you thought the sandwich was bad, I got stuck for cashews that weren't even opened or anything. I had just bought them right before I got on the plane. So, awesome. But anyway, moving
That's
on
funny.
so that we don't take up too much time. I just got engaged while I was in Europe. And so I was trying to think of some questions for you guys kind of as I'm starting this new chapter in my life. And so this question anyone can answer. I didn't really have anyone in mind. But, for someone who's considering starting a family, what advice would you give me as a young 25-year-old who has CF and CF-related diabetes? What's in store for me? What should I be aware of?
Let's start with Morgan.
Well, I'll start with like what my biggest fear was. And that was around sleep and fatigue. I think just as a person with chronic illness with CF, I am very tired a lot of the time and I am super sleep dependent. I love my sleep. I nap almost every day because I have to, otherwise I don't function. So that was before I got pregnant. That was one thing that I was very nervous. I was scared. I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I could ever be a parent because you hear about the newborn phase especially and how tiring it is and how little sleep you get. And I was like, I don't know if I could do that. And then when I found out I was pregnant, that was my biggest worry. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And Abby, I don't know how you do that not being on modulators because I don't know that I could have done it before modulators. I mean, granted, my kids were born during COVID. They were born October 2020, and we didn't have a lot of support. So it was all on my husband and I, and, we had newborn twins who were premature, and had crazy sleep schedules. And it was hard. I was like a zombie. I remember I was like, I'm not really here. I'm so tired. So I guess what I would say is advice. First of all, if you can, if you're planning on having kids, just kind of have an idea of what your support system is and how you're going to prioritize rest and taking care of yourself. Because it's so important. I would advise don't do it during a pandemic if you can help it. But yeah, I would say a support system and then just communication, communication with your partner about obviously I don't know you guys and your communication style and things like that, but to be open about, hey, I'm going to have additional needs on top of just being, a healthy mom. There's going to be additional considerations and I need your support. Granted, with what I'm saying, I'm making assumptions. I don't know if chronic fatigue is something you deal with, but that was a big thing for me.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that communication with your partner is really key. So maybe Mike and Abby can also weigh in on that.
I would say definitely communication with your partner, but also with your in-laws and your parents. Because when I first had Ben, I was only doing IVs maybe 3 times a year. It was minimal. By the time that all of them were 2, I was doing IVs 4 or 5 times a year, and it's just increased. And you need to have family or very close friends who can just step in, and that need is only going to grow. Even with modulators, I'm sure that need is going to continue. But also, this goes so against all of your parenting instincts, but you have to be selfish, and you have to know from the beginning that you have to prioritize. Actually, baby needs to go down because I need to do my physiotherapy now. Otherwise, it becomes a habit to not do your physio or not do your nebulizer. And then 5 years' time, actually, you won't be there. So you have to be selfish. And that's what my CF doctors talked to me about when I said I wanted a baby. And you think, I'll just do it. It'll be fine. But actually, I'm sure you two can agree with this. Putting baby down to take care of yourself is a real wrench on your heart because you don't want to do it, but you've just got to. And if you have to go into hospital, you have to have the support network because you just have to go. And that's not a popular opinion, but it's unfortunately, this is CF. We have to be honest.
I will back that up. It's easier for me to have kids because I didn't carry the actual kid or have my insides moved around or had the C-section that my wife did. One of my daughters was in the NICU for 6 months, extraordinarily sick, coming home. And I remember my wife at the time was like, I don't know if we can do it. I don't know if I feel comfortable taking her home. She came home on oxygen, a feeding tube. We were on like 24-hour feeds. But we asked the question, if we can't do it, what happens to her? And then she goes to a different hospital for a period of time. But they were like, we think you could do it. So we took her home. And, you know, this is before modulators. And my wife and I have talked about this. It's like you jump into gear and you do it. And I was always good at still maintaining all the breathing treatments and everything. But as we got older and were better able to express ourselves, it was kind of like what Abby just mentioned. My wife has said that over time, sometimes there was a small regret for a loss because I always needed to do X treatment. But in her mind, she also knows that I need to. And she's a great support system. So you do have to prioritize yourself, not above your kids, but you got to carve it out so that you can take care of you. I mean, like, similar to you, Lauren, I also have diabetes, and similar to you, Andrea, I had a huge fall into my diabetic world. That's another story for another day. I also have like some bone loss.
We like to say that that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast in and of itself. And I got a few other things going on. But, you know, you do have to just make sure that you carve out the time for whatever it is CF-wise. It's a lot. And even when you're well, it's still a mental load of all the things you have to do. And, you know, even on modulators, when we get sick, you get a real glimpse in the last couple of years. And I go, I don't know how I did this in the old days, but I had, you know, I'm a little older than everybody on here. I had, you know, non-modulated CF for years. And thank God I was healthy enough to still be here. But, you know, you get a taste of the old days and it gets ugly. It gets ugly. So you do have to prioritize yourself.
I think we're going to talk offline about how much older you think you are than me.
Oh, I don't think I'm that much older.
Okay.
But, okay.
Just going to, yeah. Okay.
I'm with you.
Lauren, what are you thinking? Now, first of all, I'm not sure you guys have had this. We're forcing this conversation on you a little bit, this topic, Lauren. But
yeah,
what do you
we
think?
have not had this conversation yet. We just got engaged. We can't even pick a wedding venue yet, so we are not even close to having this conversation. But
Right.
I was thinking as they were talking, growing up, I was the worst patient. Never did my meds. Never wanted to feel anything less than normal, which is stupid. And so now in the past 4-ish years, I've really tried to start taking care of myself and prioritizing my health. And that's been a big change for me in general. And so, you know, trying to add kids into that is a huge decision for me in the future that I'm pushing off until the future. So really good
Lots to think
advice.
about.
And it'll be really helpful to come back to this in, you know, who knows how many years and be like, oh, yeah, that was really smart of them to say. But I feel like I'm not even close to being at the mental capacity for that.
That makes sense. I think that your partner will be glad to hear that. I was going to say that having CF, it is tough. You want to show your kids that you're going to be here, that you're strong, that you can take care of them, make them feel safe. Like, how does that impact, being a parent with CF and raising those kids, especially if they start seeing, or when they start seeing, your vulnerable side? How did that feel? Did you try to hide it?
No, I think there was really no hiding the CF. The kids' first memories were like really imitating a lot of what they saw. They both did a very good impression of Flutter. in the Flutter sound. I did not have a vest. I had the local PT company in Massachusetts. Yeah. John Nadeau and the Chest PT services. And I had the original John coming over. So I had Chest PT come over 5 times a week and then as much as 6 times a week. But so they would sit on the board sometimes during Chest PT, and then they'd also try to do Chest PT after. They also liked it performed on themselves. And
Did they do it on their dolls too?
I never saw them do it on the dolls, but they would attempt to do it on me.
I did it on my doll.
So I don't think I did the vulnerable side. I mean, I was normal all the time, but they knew when, especially for my wife, when Daddy's sick, Daddy really gets sick. And so that's why, the good news is when we brought the one daughter home from the NICU, we had really good hygiene for everything. And so we were always careful with her because out of the NICU, she had a lot of repeat visits to the hospital and inpatient stays. But we also wanted to, be conscious of germs. So they probably led for a good 6 years a very sheltered life. They were not outside in the gym with no ball pits or anything crazy for a long time. And so, but there was just no hiding it. But I was fairly normal, but they knew when I was sick, it was, awful. But
first of all, the ball pit just brings back such memories. Morgan, I want to go into that so bad.
I really want to go into the ball pit too, but I won't. All I'll say is I remember my mom put the fear of God into us as kids about staying away from the ball pit. She was like, no, you are not allowed in the ball pit. We really wanted to go. So my pregnancy was the result of starting Trikafta. And so my kids have never known me pre-Trikafta. They've never known the CF world. And I have thought about that actually, like, I don't even think they know the words cystic fibrosis or CF. I don't think they don't have any awareness of what it is. Last December, I was hospitalized for 4 days. I got pneumonia, and you talk about a parenting thing. I knew that I was sick, but I convinced myself that I was like overplaying it. And so I tried to tough it out. And I was like, this is just something viral. It's going to pass. Like, I need to just like tough it out. No, turns out it was pneumonia, and it got pretty bad to the point where I was on oxygen for a few days, and I really freaked my doctor out when I was like, yeah, I was trying to sweep my room, and I just had to lay down and sleep. I couldn't finish it. He was like, okay, you need to go to the ER. So that was my kid's first introduction to anything medical beyond me going to clinic and taking my pills. And my daughter in particular, I think it really freaked her out. She was like, where's mommy? Like, they would FaceTime me and be like, where are you? When are you coming back? And it was kind of compounded by the fact that it was over Christmas. It was like the 22nd through the 26th or something like that. And so that was hard and sad, but it also gave me a lot of perspective. And I was like, you know what? This is not my reality. This is kind of a fluky thing. It's not a CF exacerbation. And wow, I'm so glad it's not, because 4 days in the grand scheme is like nothing.
Was it like just sort of a standard pneumonia, or did you have pseudomonas?
Yeah, it actually was just walking pneumonia, but I let it go too long. And so I got pretty sick. But once I was on the right antibiotics, it resolved really well, and I don't have any like lasting effects from it. So it wasn't that bad. And then just the other thing I'll say is, it had never occurred to me. So my kids are 4.5 now. It had never occurred to me to take them to a CF walk. I hadn't been in a few years, probably since I think 2019, before they were born was the last time I went. And so this year we took them to their first CF walk. And then thereafter, when they referred to it as that fun day. And so they loved it. And it was really cool to like introduce them to my doctor and just kind of the community in general. And it made me a little emotional, and it was very nostalgic because, I grew up going to walks. And so hearing some of the stories that people shared at the walk and seeing people crying because, their loved one wasn't there because they had passed away, it just makes you feel very grateful, and also a little bit of like, I guess, survivor's guilt of like, wow, I got so lucky. And why did other people not? And that's a whole other conversation, but that definitely came up.
It's another podcast.
Yeah.
That feeling right there, that is something that we definitely a different podcast, definitely something we talk about in clinic and every other venue where we talk about getting older. And I know Abby has obviously a perspective of not being on modulators.
Yeah. So my children know all about CF, and so my boy was born in 2015 and my daughter's in 2016. So modulators, although it turned out I wasn't able to tolerate them, they weren't even in the picture when I first had the children. So I took them to clinic all the time. My hospital at the time was 3 minutes down the road from me. So they came to every single clinic and really got to know my CF team. And they can explain CF quite well, to the point where I was pushing them in the park the other week and they were talking to their school friends. And one of my girls says, so the genetic code, I've got a broken bit, but it's not fully broken. And the other daughter was like, what are you talking about? It just didn't make any sense to them. But they do understand CF. And unfortunately, they also understand that my condition has worsened. I'm a little bit better than I was a couple of years ago, but 2023, I was managing 5 weeks out of hospital at a time and then going straight back in. So the school had to step in and give them counselling and all sorts. Like, it was quite rough. So they can explain CF well, and they do know that CF will kill me. And I thought very hard before I started talking about that with them. But I just thought I don't want to leave them and have never told them and never warned them that I'm just going to go one day. And hopefully it will be a long time, but they're very young and I didn't want them to not have that. And now I'm having transplant talks. I've got a book about what transplant is that's for children, to sort of try and introduce that to them. But yeah, they know about my physio, they see my physio, and it's a daft story, but my daughters wear glasses, and the first time they went to opticians, the new opticians, they said, oh, do you take any medicine with my daughter? She said, oh, no, but Mummy smokes hers. No, it's the nebulizer. It's the nebulizer. Yeah. So they say things like that, but they do understand quite well, and they come and visit me in hospital. I FaceTime them every day, and once a week, John brings a meal, and we sit either in the room or outside, and we all have a family meal at the hospital, just to try and normalize it.
I love that.
That's
You're
nice.
vaping. You're vaping, essentially.
It was my special medicine as well, so I can explain. Yeah.
Abby, are your girls twins?
Yes, and my girls, so I've got Freya and Eve are identical twins, and then
Oh
Ben
my
is my
gosh.
older. Yeah. We've all got twins, which is,
Yeah.
yeah.
You all have twins. I mean, it is,
Oh my
I mean, and the twins that, Michael had is more something that we expect with IVF, but like for Morgan and Abby, I mean, this was a huge surprise for you guys.
Are yours identical?
No, but the twins was a shock. Like, we didn't do anything special aside from taking Trikafta.
That's not why we chose you guys.
Yeah, it just happened to be that way. Although it's always interesting. And by the way, our first podcast was with one of our colleagues, an endocrinologist, who is a twin, and her sister had twins themselves, because there is a genetic code for having twins. It's familial, and they had twins at the same time. So like, it's really, incredible. I just wanted to come back to Morgan. We talk about the other shoe dropping all the time as we're growing older. So even though you have the survival guilt, you also are dealing with still having CF. I mean, you still have it, you still experience this pneumonia. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, the survivor's guilt is really real. I just want to make sure that, you're living the life of someone who has CF, very much like, so many others. You're dealing with the everyday, reality of your diagnosis as well. So I didn't want to just move on and not really talk about that.
Yes, and there are definitely challenges that come with, being on modulators and having CF, and like new challenges like the mental health stuff and guilt and worries about like, okay, but what if insurance changes in the United States and I lose my access? I'll be right back where I was in 2019. Like, those things are scary. But right now, I mean, for the most part, I'm living a pretty normal, I mean, there are definitely things, like, not trying to minimize it, but pretty normal, healthy life. And, Abby, without, like, you're just, I feel like you're on a different plane. And I just don't want to sound like, oh, poor me, or like, yes, I'm still struggling, because I just feel like it is so different. And I don't know what to say, like what the right thing to say about that is. I'm basically just trying to say, like, I'm very deeply impacted by your story, Abby. I'm like so impressed. Like, how are you doing? Not just 3 kids, but a singleton and twins and all that you're going through. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. And yeah, I'm kind of at a loss.
And I think that's why I had trouble even framing the question, because it is hard. I didn't want you to feel that, you are living the reality of your diagnosis, and Abby is, clearly, I was going to say, I think about parenthood pre and post modulator. I think about pregnancy pre and post modulator. Abby, you haven't, and I'm going to let you talk in just a second, but you haven't experienced that kind of stabilization. Like, as Morgan talked about, one of the side effects of modulators is pregnancy. I mean, it's just that's how women are getting pregnant, and you didn't experience that. But now you're in this beautiful, I feel like you also feel you're in a beautiful place with these 3 wonderful children. Being on this side of it and not being on modulators, what's your reflection?
I think modulators has actually split the community a little bit, because people who are on modulators, I don't want to speak for you here, Morgan, but I think people on modulators feel so much guilt, but you still have CF. And people like me who, for whatever reason, cannot take modulators, I still recognize that you still have CF. And there isn't really the split, but it is hard. It's hard for me to talk about your life and you to talk about my life, because they're different, but they are equally challenging. They're just a different challenge. And also, my children are 10 and 8. So there's a bit of time has passed, And for me, I am eligible for modulators. I've got DF508 and IF507. But for me, I only managed 15 days on full dose, and then 18 months on a variety of different doses and medications. I won't go into it in detail, it's a different story, but the problem was seizures and hemiplegia. So it was a significant problem. And so when I was having those 18 months of really trying modulators, the effect on the children was awful, because I would collapse and they would have to just work around me, because it was COVID. We didn't have any help. And John had to go out to work and things. And then at one point, the children put themselves to bed around me because I could not move. But they knew that I was fine, because it happens so regularly. So actually not being on modulators for me is a relief. Even though I would like the health, I don't have any regrets about not being on modulators, because it was so wrong for me. Wow. So I can talk about modulators quite happily with that piece.
I just think we're kind of illustrating what maybe is going on, like on a larger scale and within the CF community. It's like we don't really know how to talk about this yet because it seems so unfair and it seems so random.
I do think, I'll just add, I think a lot of people, I'm going to generalize a little bit, but people with CF are like, whether you grew up with it and you're older or you had some of it, but then you're on modulators, we're so used to like getting punched and then pivoting and like, I can deal with it, I can take it, I'm strong. Not everybody's like that, but even in the transplant community, there's a lot of guilt, whether you like I'm 26 years post-transplant, there's guilt. Why me? Why am I 26 years out? And some people make it 1 year. But I know that, like, if you get into a quiet talk with somebody, there's FOMO, there's anger, there's resentment. Like, why did I miss the modulator boat? Or why is my transplant going to second and third? And I just can't seem to get traction. So I think it's an important conversation to keep having so that we all stick together, because that's how we get through. It's a really resilient community that needs each other.
I would like to say, before the so-called split between the modulator crowd and the non-modulator crowd, which we can admit we're all CF, it's one big boat, there was the transplant versus the non-transplant. Because for most of my life, I thought about that, and then the whole thing was the transplant. I'd be like, in my head years ago when I was young and dumb, oh, well, you got a transplant, you're all better. No. It's just one set of problems for another set of problems. We're all from the same boat, and you have multiple different angles of everything. It's just one big,
Big happy boat.
yeah, big happy boat. But, modulators fixed a lot of stuff. It doesn't, depending on how many years you had damage, you could also come into the modulator thing at the last second and be years and years and years of damage somehow. I remember one time I was talking to a radiologist that was reading my chest x-rays, and I'm like, you can't tell I have CF from those chest x-rays, can you? Because I was really fairly healthy. And he's like, yes, I can. And then he told me like 5 things that were on there, and I was like, oh, geez, I opened myself up for that. Sometimes you think you're healthier than you are, but the damage is still there. So, yeah, one big boat.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Morgan, for saying what you did. And I did want to pivot back to it because I do think this is a conversation that I'm glad that you guys are having with each other. I clearly don't know how to navigate that as well from our perspective, seeing our community that we all are so close to and love, and seeing some people, struggling. And I'm going to bring it back to pregnancy, but, mothers, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it just was, it's a different experience. And Abby, you're having that experience, and, it is tough, but I do. And I appreciate Andrea, you bringing up, FOMO and resentment. But I also, when I talk to people one-on-one, I mean, it does feel that everyone has a camaraderie and is happy for each other and their health, and sad when, you don't have that health. Andrea, you had a question.
How has parenting impacted your relationship with your significant other or co-parent?
Both strengthened and weakened it in different ways. It's definitely strengthened it. So my husband, John, so it's strengthened it because John has had to really step up a lot more. And he gets to do what I would call the mum stuff whenever I'm in hospital. And that's strengthened our bond because he gets to be both parents and see what I'm going through and I get to see what he's going through. But it's also weakened it because I need a lot more sleep. And so as the kids have got older, I go to bed a lot earlier because I just can't keep going. So we don't get as much evening time. So that's kind of it.
we only had 2 years before we had kids. So we got married at 20. I was 26. She was 25. And we said we were going to try for kids, which needed obviously IVF help 3 years in, but she had a kind of a different plan and started like about maybe a year after we were married. And she's like, oh, it's going to be it could take a while. And she was actually right, because we had 7 failed cycles. We got pregnant on the 7th cycle, so it took over a year. But and she was like determined to have kids. But I think overall it's strengthened us, because now that we're, we have 27-year-olds, so we're now just a fully functioning team. And the funny part is as the kids get older, the problems just get, you guys, I looking at Lauren, the problems just get different, but you're still parenting. We're not as many touch points, but it's not like we're off scot-free, and we have nothing to do with them. It's just different stuff. But we're a cohesive team, and I think the whole bond of all of the kids' stuff has bonded us. But I did say that my wife, has shared, as we've gotten older, the one regret of time, where it says you just got to set aside time to be doing stuff, which, for your disease or diseases or everything, did you check your blood sugar before you eat? Oh, you got to go eat. Did you do second Caiston today? That kind of stuff. It's just all sorts of things, but ultimately stronger.
I will say that even somebody doesn't have CF, like that happens.
Yeah.
Like, did you forget to eat?
Yeah.
I was going to take it one more notch, because how does it affect, your partner, but also with your kids, especially your kids being 27. I was just going to share that you have someone in your one of your children has decided to go become a doctor. How does that, how did your diagnosis impact her decision? I sort of already know the answer, but
Yeah, between my place in life and then her twins starting out point and her twins current status and what development did to her, definitely was a motivator towards medicine and healing, and I think really pushed her. She wants to be a peds doctor of some form. So, immensely.
How about the other twin?
The other twin she is working. We're very happy. She's living out of this house. We're very happy about that, and fully functioning in life, and is a pleasure. I told her I was going to be on this podcast. So just one shout out to Lindsay, because we're watching the Rocky movies.
Nice.
Yo, Lindsay, I did it. Let's hope that makes the final cut.
Oh, it will.
or maybe you don't want that to be the final cut.
Make it the final cut. I don't care. It's as bad as my singing
That was
on a love
awesome.
story.
That was awesome. Morgan?
So my husband and I got married in 2015, and so, we had 5 years, just us, before having kids. And I was 20. He's 5 years older than me, so I was 23. He was 28 when we got married. Which now looking back, so we're about to have our 10-year this year. Now looking back, I'm like, I was so young. But I think part of that was like CF, and like you kind of mature more quickly. But so I think we had those years to figure out communication and get to know each other really well, and like travel and do our things together. So, parenthood, I think especially the first year kind of rocked our world, because we were living for us, and like we were doing whatever we wanted. There was no competition, I guess, for like my needs and my kids' needs. Like if I needed to sleep, I went and took a nap. If, all the things, I was able to fully prioritize myself. So then, when kids came along, there were definitely some like rough patches, especially like having newborns during COVID and not having a lot of outside support. I think we did the best that we could, but it was definitely challenging. And, you know, you go through the phase where you feel more like roommates than spouses. And that was hard and sad for us. And like, we had lots of conversations, usually with me crying, being like, I don't know what's happening. But I think now that our kids are 4.5, it's gotten a lot easier. We're in kind of a sweet spot where they're pretty independent, and we just really love all being together. Like, one of our kids will say something that's like funny or ridiculous or whatever, and we'll kind of look at each other, make eye contact across the room, and be like, like we have like our shared like nonverbal communication about the kids. So it's like connection on a new level.
Hey everyone, that wraps up part 1 of CF Parenting Stories, 3 Voices, 3 Perspectives, and our conversation on parenting when you have CF. Similar to our conversation with 3 community voices post-lung transplant, some stories take more space, and this one also needed 2 parts. We hope you'll keep listening because in part 2, the stories get even deeper. We'll continue our talk with Morgan, Mike, and Abby about what our kids see, what we hide, and what it means to show up on the hard days and still be proud of how we parent. Part 2 will drop on all podcast platforms mid-September. We are working hard to provide meaningful information to a deserving CF community, information you won't find anywhere else. If you'd like to help us grow, we'd greatly appreciate it if you would follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode. Want to go all in? Leave us a rating and a review. It helps people find us and makes a big difference. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend, family member, caregiver, or provider who might also want to hear it. This helps you, it helps them, and it helps us spread the word to those who need to hear it most. It's a Lung Story is produced by me, Andrea Gavin Becker, and is hosted by Dr. Ahmet Uluer and Lauren Harvey. Additional editing and production support is provided by the team at Resonate Recordings. Until next time,
Get a little older.
Live a little bolder.